It is no secret that former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is not exactly a favorite these days of the political media. He made lots of enemies during his tenure, and hardly surprising that he doesn't get much benefit of the doubt, particularly given the allegations against him in the report from the New York Attorney General. But even though the right never liked him and the left has turned on him, that shouldn't mean that the media just ignore aspects of the story that don't favor the accepted narrative of the day. A column out this week from the Washington Post's Erik Wemple shows how the media did just that, leaving out key details about one of Cuomo's significant accusers. In his column, Wemple showed how the media ignored an important piece of information about Charlotte Bennett, the second woman to accuse former Governor Cuomo of sexual harassment. Bennett, a former aide to the governor, told the New York Times and CBS about an incident when she was alone with the governor in June of 2020. She claims Cuomo asked a series of invasive questions about her personal life and past romantic relationships. Bennett came forward on February 27th of last year, just 3 days after the first accuser, Lindsey Boylan, published an essay detailing her allegation. Media attention then skyrocketed after Bennett came forward, as the existence of a second accuser sort of established a pattern as far as the media was concerned. Immediately, Cuomo was essentially pegged as a serial harasser. Now, it turns out that back in 2017, a federal lawsuit accused Bennett of filing a false sexual misconduct accusation against a classmate at Hamilton College, something a guest on this show, Michael Tracy, alluded to during an appearance. The lawsuit alleged that Bennett filed the claim, quote, knowing it was false and knowing there was evidence of its falsity. The suit claimed there was even a recording in which Bennett admitted the man she accused did not harass her. The school settled the lawsuit on undisclosed terms. And yet, this information was nowhere to be found in coverage of the Cuomo scandal. The question now is, why? Erik Wemple, who is now, I'm sure, getting all sorts of hate tweets and emails, joins us now. Erik, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Am I right about the response that you've gotten?
I haven't seen much hatred, I must say. I have not been the subject of any attacks for this. You might suppose that.
I'd look on Twitter. That's where I got that from. Okay. But anyway, why do you think the media turned its back on what would seem to be some very pertinent information here?
Well, as best I can tell, and thanks for reading the story and having me on, I really do appreciate it. As best I can tell, there seemed to be a scramble among media outlets to get the story of the next accuser, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. If you recall, the AG report had 11 women who alleged some form of sexual misconduct or another against the governor. Wasn't always sexual harassment, and again, these terms are sometimes very confusing and difficult, but sometimes it was touching, sometimes it was just creepy conversations that were being alleged. But in any case, it seemed as though the media was in an all-out scramble to get the story about this alleged tendency on part of the governor. And I don't believe that at any point did the media writ large, the Albany Press Corps extended, go back and look at, say, the last one, and dig a little deeper, look at the evidence that was out there, and really ask all the questions that needed to be asked about the allegations. I'm not saying that those allegations were necessarily flimsy or anything. All I'm saying, that all I tried to establish in what I wrote was that this information was relevant to the story, right? And that
and I've said before that I think the media is really bad at distinguishing the most serious kinds of sexual assault from creepy behavior, right? And I think that it does the sexual assault cases a grave disservice. I've done a whole segment on it on this show in the past. Now, the New York Times was the first to report on Bennett's allegation. You noted in your column that they made mention of Bennett's history of activism, of sexual misconduct at Hamilton College, but they didn't mention this lawsuit where she was accused of making a false claim. Did your reporting indicate that they knew about this lawsuit before they published her allegation?
What I take from the New York Times response was that they did not know about this suit before or as they published their story. They found out about it afterwards from an anonymous tipster. You might say, oh, that's inexcusable for the New York Times, but you do have to consider that the accuser in this case, Charlotte Bennett, was not identified by name in that lawsuit, nor was she a defendant in the suit. So if you did a legal search, it might have been difficult to come up with that. The question then for the New York Times became, do you do a story, sort of a separate story on the suit, or just roll it into the continuing coverage? That's a call, of course, for the New York Times. We know what call they made. They never mentioned the suit. But it's also a question for the broader Albany press corps, which is, why didn't anybody pick this up? And nobody.
It's not just Albany. But Erik, it's not just Albany.
Yeah,
you know
true.
that. This is the national press corps, because this story has been bubbling around for a long time. No one wants to touch it. They don't want to touch it because they're afraid of getting criticized. They're afraid of people going after them.
I asked the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and other outlets about this. So yes, I did a national sort of reporting survey on this.
Right.
Yes.
Erik Wemple.
One quick final thought. It wasn't necessarily only that these news organizations didn't write up this lawsuit. They didn't even contact the lawyer who represented the plaintiff to ask him about it. So there was no curiosity.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, in terms of media critics, et cetera, I want to point out that we had Chris Cuomo up on the screen there for a minute. That's not who we were talking about today. So anyway, Erik Wemple, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay.